Hi guys, and welcome to day 26 of our Battle of the Poets project. Thank you for joining me today. We are currently on round 3, in which we are looking at some of our very favorite poets. Yesterday we took a look at another Billy Collins poem, and today we're going to be taking a look at another poem by Louise Gluck. If you recall, Louise Gluck is another poet that is currently writing, and she's very well respected. She's a professor at Yale. She has won the Pulitzer Prize, and we've actually been reading from her her book of poems called The Wild Iris, this was the book that won the Pulitzer for her. And today, I'm going to be sharing with you a poem called April. And I chose it for a couple of reasons. First of all, because it is April. And second of all, because I think that it's very typical of Louise Gluck. She is known for writing poetry that is maybe a little bit bleak or introspective. It often has this feeling of despair, like very lightly glazed with hope. And I think that one of the things we talked about the most with this poetry series is about how kind of the real point of poetry, in my opinion, is that you should emotionally connect with it. If you don't emotionally connect with a poem, then, you might appreciate it. It might be good poetry, but it's probably not going to be super useful for you. So I chose this poem because it's a poem that kind of resonates with me. And I think that Louise Gluck's kind of discussion of her spiritual life in this poem is very thought-provoking, and I think she's got some interesting observations. So without further ado, this is April by Louise Gluck. No one's despair is like my despair. You have no place in this garden, thinking such things, producing the tiresome outward signs, the man pointedly weeding an entire forest, the woman limping, refusing to change clothes or wash her hair. Do you suppose I care if you speak to one another? But I mean you to know, I expected better of two creatures who were given minds, if not that you would actually care for each other, at least that you would understand. Grief is distributed between you, among all your kind, for me, to know you, as deep blue marks the wild scilla, white the wood violet. So that was April by Louise Gluck. And like I said, I chose this poem because I personally sort of like it, and I think that she does an interesting thing comparing the colors of flowers, marking and identifying flowers, to the idea that grief and despair is a uniquely human quality, but in that it sort of defines us, but it does not encompass us in the same way that a color is not everything that a flower is. But I do think it's kind of interesting that she makes that comparison between the colors of a flower and the emotions of a human. This whole book is kind of interesting in that regard, that she does make comparisons a lot between humans and plants. But it also makes me think of the T.S. Eliot line, which we did not read, but is one of his most famous lines, that April is the cruelest month. And I think we're feeling that. So thank you for joining me again today, and I will be back tomorrow with another poet for round 3. For right now, I need you guys to go ahead and vote. You can choose either Billy Collins's poem that we read yesterday, or you can choose the Louise Gluck poem that we read today, and I'll be back tomorrow with the results. Thank you for joining me again, and have a great rest of the night.